She's in a meeting, nodding at the right moments and simultaneously winning an argument she lost 3 years ago. She's folding laundry and also accepting an apology she never actually received. She's making eye contact with you right now, and she's also somewhere else entirely. This is not a disorder. This is the parallel life inside her head, and it has been running longer than she can remember. Here's what the popular explanation gets wrong. Everyone talks about this like it's a glitch. Like the woman who lives inside elaborate imaginary scenarios is a person who cannot cope with reality, someone who needs to log off and come back to the present. But that framing skips the most interesting question entirely. What is she doing in there? Not just that she's doing it, but what specifically is her parallel life about? Because when you actually look at the content of what women imagine, a pattern emerges that is not random at all. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Psychologist Ellie Sommer at the University of Haifa, who coined the term maladaptive daydreaming in 2002 after years of studying people who live inside elaborate inner worlds, found something that almost never gets mentioned in the videos about this topic. The emotional content of these imagined scenarios is not wish fulfillment in the way people assume. It is not primarily about fantasy or escape. It is about resolution. The scenarios are full of things that were left unfinished in real life. Conversations that ended too soon, moments where she went quiet when she wanted to speak, situations where someone treated her in a way that was never acknowledged or addressed. Her brain did not stop working on those files. It took them somewhere it could actually finish them. That somewhere is the parallel life. Your default mode network, which is the brain's internal simulation engine, discovered by neuroscientist Marcus Raichley at Washington University in the early 2000s, activates every single time your attention is not occupied by an external task. The shower, the commute, the 3 seconds between putting your phone down and falling asleep. It fires up immediately and it starts running scenarios. For most people, this is background noise. For some people, the default mode network is running a full production. Multiple storylines, recurring characters, emotional arcs that pick up exactly where they left off. Research published in the British Journal of Clinical Psychology in 2026 found something quietly devastating about people who live like this. Their imagined self, the version of them inside the parallel life, and their real self have started to diverge. The person they are in their head is more articulate, more confident, more fully expressed than the person who shows up in daily life. And the wider the gap gets, the harder reality feels by comparison. Not because reality is actually worse, because the parallel life has become the only place where she gets to be the full version of herself. Think about what that means. The parallel life is not where she goes to be delusional. It is where she goes to be honest. Here's a scenario you will recognize. She had a conversation with someone that bothered her. She did not say what she actually thought because the timing was wrong or the dynamic was complicated or she has spent years learning to manage how she comes across. She left that conversation with everything still inside her. And then at 11 p.m., standing in front of the bathroom mirror, her brain finally gave her the space to say it perfectly, completely, with the exact words that did not come in the moment. In the parallel life, she said it. The other person understood. It landed the way it should have landed, and for 30 seconds, her nervous system exhaled. That is not avoidance. That is her brain completing an incomplete experience. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect, named after Soviet psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik, who found in the 1920s that unfinished experiences stay neurologically active in a way completed ones do not. Your brain keeps an open tab for every interaction that did not resolve cleanly, every conversation that ended before she could say what she meant, Every situation where she adjusted herself to keep the peace and then carried the cost of that adjustment privately. Those tabs do not close, they run in the background, and the parallel life is where her brain sends them to finally finish. But here's the part that makes this specifically disproportionately female. A concept developed by sociologist Arlie Hochschild in her landmark work, The Managed Heart, shows that women are socialized from early childhood to manage not just their own emotional expression, but the emotional comfort of everyone around them. To read the room, to absorb the tension, to hold back the thing that would make the moment difficult, to be palatable. This is not a personality trait. This is a skill that was taught, rewarded, and eventually became automatic. And it has a neurological cost that nobody talks about. Every time she held the thought back in real life, her brain logged it. Every time she rearranged what she was going to say so it would land better for the other person, the unedited version still existed somewhere. Every time she performed a version of herself that was more agreeable, more manageable, more quiet than what was actually happening inside her, her nervous system filed the original. The parallel life is where all of those originals live. It is the unedited archive of everything she was but did not show. This is why the content of women's imagined scenarios tends to follow a specific pattern. The argument where she finally said the thing she held back for months. The conversation where someone acknowledged what they did. The version of a relationship where she was chosen fully and without conditions. The career moment where her contribution was actually seen. These are not fantasies about things that could not happen. These are replays of things that almost happened, that should have happened, that her brain is still trying to make happen in the only environment where she has full control of the outcome. And the cruel irony is that the more she's required to manage herself in real life, the more vivid and necessary the parallel life becomes. It is not a retreat from reality, it is a pressure valve. The parallel life exists in direct proportion to how much she is not allowed to be in the real one. Scott Barry Kaufman, a cognitive psychologist at Columbia University, distinguishes positive constructive daydreaming from ruminative daydreaming that loops on pain without resolution. The parallel life, at its core, is closer to the constructive end that anyone gives it credit for. She's not spiraling, she's processing. She's building, revising, and completing the experiences that reality handed her half-finished. The problem is not that she has a parallel life. The problem is that she needs one. When the gap between who she is allowed to be and who she actually is becomes too wide, the parallel life stops being a processing tool and starts becoming a residence. She finds herself more emotionally invested in the imagined version of a relationship than in the real one, because in the imagined version, the real version of her showed up. She feels genuine grief when the parallel life does not go the way she wrote it, because somewhere in the overlap between simulation and reality, her brain stopped tracking which one was which. This is what Sommer's research described. The daydreams became indistinguishable from actual memories, not because she was confused, but because the emotional reality of the parallel life was more complete than the emotional reality of her actual experience. So, what is actually happening in her head? Her brain is doing something sophisticated and exhausting and entirely rational given the conditions. It is taking everything she absorbed, managed, suppressed, and adjusted and running it through a simulation where she gets to be unedited, where nobody needs her to be smaller, where the conversation ends the way it deserved to end, where she is not too much or not enough, where she is, finally, just enough. The parallel life is not the problem, it is the evidence. It is her nervous system's record of the distance between the life she's living and the life she's capable of, between the version of herself she shows and the version she carries. And as long as that distance exists, the parallel life will keep running. Not because she's avoiding reality, because she's most honest in the only place where honesty costs her nothing. She will step out when the real world finally makes as much room for her as she does.